All right, so you guys, this is Gina, and her last name is not Palooza. Her last name is Manuel. Yeah, it might be changing. So we're just really glad you're here. And what we're doing this morning is talking about life and love and cultures and traditions that are often different, and yet God's faithfulness is really unchanging. And so we wanted to talk about the uniqueness of this, and uniqueness then even of Gina's experience more recently. And so we got a picture here of Gina in a dress called a sari, right? Correct? Now, Gina, that is a cool dress, and I'm assuming you didn't get it at Old Navy.
They were out at Old Navy.
Yeah,
so,
okay.
I decided I needed to go a little farther to purchase said dress.
Okay, so the next picture shows, this isn't close to where you bought the dress.
This
is the street.
Yeah, this is pretty close. Actually, I couldn't tell you the street because they kind of just all look the same, and there were people everywhere. But one of these streets.
Okay, and there's another one for another street,
yeah.
So kind of a busy place.
Yeah, and this is in the city of Bangalore in Karnataka, India. And this is actually specifically a wholesale area where you can buy lots of silks and clothing and jewelry and fashion. It's called Chickpet.
Okay.
And so this is where I found that.
Okay, and then here's the store.
Dress.
This is the store itself.
This is one of the stores.
One of the stores.
So all of those little neatly folded items there on the shelves are different outfits. And you'll see that gentleman there. He'd pull one of those bags off the shelf, and then you'd open it up, and he'd spread the clothing on the ground for you to take a look. So that's how I decided to pick which dress I would pick since Old Navy was out.
All right. Okay. Good. I think that's cool. So let me ask this question. What's the occasion? It's a cool looking dress.
Yeah. I figured I needed to have a good occasion to wear something like that.
Absolutely. So what would you wear this for?
So I decided to wear it for an engagement. To that guy.
All right. So, but as we've interacted, this story is a little different than your typical American Prince Charming, Sleeping Beauty deal. So could you tell us a little bit about this? Because I don't recognize this gentleman.
Yes.
He has never been in this room.
Yes. In fact, he's not on this continent. He is still in India, hence the reason there's a video camera, so maybe he can see this too.
Cool.
Well, it's quite a journey. I guess I'd kind of talk about telling the story from my perspective as someone born in America but raised by parents who were immigrants from India. And I'm going to just kind of read this because I kind of had to go back and kind of put something together and put my thoughts together. I want to be very purposeful about what I shared, and I could probably stand up here for hours and share a life story of what this experience was like for me, because it definitely didn't start in the 7 months that I met Manoj, which was just back in April is when I actually met him, and December is when I started talking to him. But when it came to meeting someone or dating as a young person, I didn't bother with putting expectations together, because the expectation in my home was that the only friend I would have that was a boy would be my brother. And although I was born in America and raised in America, the start of my culture began in my home. And that was a home of 2 Indian parents who, along with all of their belongings, left their families and moved to this country, bringing with them neatly folded in that suitcase Indian and Christian values as well. And because of how my parents raised me, my expectations were formed by my parents. And that expectation was to get your education, learn to love God and your family, and you can worry about the rest later. So I stuck with what they told me. And when I went to college and I left the nest, I realized I had to develop some of those expectations a little bit more. And I was experiencing a level of independence that I had to quickly seek out a Christian ministry to help me develop my faith and ability to relate to others. So that included the male persuasion. And so I emphasized Christian ministry because as my mother and father dropped me off at college and we drove by like the 2 frat houses at Truman, my dad simply said, "Don't go there." It's probably the one thing I remember the most after they dropped me off. So the expectations of my parents never changed, and to see me through my education was their promise. And they would be there after my education was over, because when it was complete, then it was time to marry. I mean, what else is there to do? And so if my dad had a groom standing at the end of the stage of my college graduation, I wouldn't have been surprised. So this is where the elements of my American and American Christian surroundings kind of conflicted with my parents' wishes. And so what I saw around me was people dating and making lists of what they should have in a mate, and getting engaged and signing up for eHarmony and, all of these different things. And so I had to kind of wrestle with that. And I kind of told my parents, you know what, I kind of want to do what everyone around me is doing. And so, my parents, they didn't just try to convince me that they could quickly remedy my singleness. They tried to actively do that on a number of occasions. And many times I was not appreciative, and if I could totally feel God telling me to trust him instead of reading I Kiss Dating Goodbye or signing up for numerous online dating sites. But I didn't want to trust God, and therefore I had no desire to trust what my parents were trying to do for me. And that was using a matrimonial ad in a newspaper in India to find prospective suitors, and then allowing a family representative and relatives to screen him before we communicated, and then deciding to marry said suitor. So that's...
Okay, this is really different. You're kind of living in two cultures.
You are
and
correct.
Trying to figure out which one to live in, how to do that, how God might meet you in the midst of both of them or either of them. Mm-hmm. And this is quite a unique journey for you. Not untypical of a first-generation immigrant family, right? That comes from a very different culture. And so you're wrestling through this whole thing. And so then you come to this place of this idea of engaging a more Indian culture in this process. Mm-hmm. There's got to be a conflict there. And what did that look like? What was that like?
Yeah, it was difficult because I saw one way working. I was immersed in one version, and then I would hear of this other opportunity, possibility. And honestly, I kept trying my way, and I totally paid for it. And maybe when there's another free Sunday, I can tell you about my numerous unnerving and simply weird experiences I had trying, to be in control and to do what I thought was best for me, and even what I thought would be the safest. But the reality is that nothing about my personal will is safe, that God's will is really the safest. And in the midst of all the crazy, my parents never gave up on me, and they just waited and at times tried strongly to persuade me that they could do for me what would be actually a good thing. And so all they wanted to do was help me meet someone and marry, because marriage is good. But again, their help would end up involving a country on the other side of the world, a place that I wasn't sure I really fit in either. And then I just had to remember how much I fit into God's will when I choose it, and when I trust him, and when I let him be in charge. And it's not something that I had to do in this process one time. I've had to do it, every day. And I kept hearing the Lord say, just trust this. People have been doing this for centuries, this process, well before, any of us have been contemplating how marriage really works. And so it was the Lord kind of putting these very odd obstacles in my way and not letting things work out the way I wanted to, that I finally surrendered, and I was like, all right, fine. Do it. I'll do it. I'll try it your way. And it worked out.
Okay, so we won't go into the stories. So you said they'd be unique, and I've heard a few of them, and I'm like, this is unique. You kind of dipped your toe in this other culture from your family's culture. You dipped your toe, and there was a few different guys you interacted with one way or another, and a few of those experiences were like, no stinking way. That is not going to work. Forget it. Pa-poom, I'm out of here. But then you came back to it again, and you began to interact with a particular gentleman. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, again, I was kind of getting these responses and taking a risk and starting conversations, and I told my dad, let me just talk to him. I will know in like a minute if this is going to work. And And he was like, because there was a gentleman, Manoj lives, he's Malayali, which is, our family's from Kerala, and but he doesn't live in Kerala. He grew up actually more in northern India. His family is military. His dad was military, and he grew up kind of he grew up in Karnataka, which is a different state, and like every state in India feels like it has a different culture. And so, his culture was different than, the state that my family was from. And so, as I said, there's representatives, there's people that, act on your behalf and for your good. And there's this one particular gentleman that would always be a part of the process for my family. And my dad was like, he's going to go meet him first before you talk to him. And I was like, that's a waste. Like, he had to get on a plane, or he had to ride a train hours upon hours to go meet this gentleman and meet Manoj. And I was like, just let me talk to him. But my dad just said, let them do it their way. Like, trust the process and believe that this can be good, and let him, experience an interaction and his family before you communicate. And so I did that. And then he talked to my dad before he talked to me, and then we started talking, and I was pleasantly surprised.
Well, you know what? In fact, let's go two ahead, show a picture of that gentleman, and then we'll come back to that one. So tell us about this gentleman. Who is he?
His name is Roy, and he's a character, but he is just, he's not, I don't even think he's really related to us. He's just a great family friend that's known my father and his family since a very, very early time in, my father's life. And he's just always been faithful to our family when my father was like, my daughter can't meet anybody, so we need help. And he was the man responsible for, putting the ad in the paper and then receiving the responses and, kind of tossing some to the, out the curb and kind of taking, going to great strides to care for my family and, help my father in this process, because he's not in India. My father's here. And so I don't know how many people this man met just on my behalf. And he doesn't like being called the matchmaker. It like offends him. But that's kind of what he does, because he loves the Lord, he loves marriage, and he wants to bring people together. So he flew I don't know how many times to go meet Manoj. He went ahead to find a place for us to stay since we're not from that area. And so, he really invested in our family and went to great strides to help.
That's cool. Okay. So as a young person, I know you're thinking, well, this is weird. But as a parent, we're starting to think, I like this idea. Right? How many parents are going, yeah, okay, I'm into it. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So then let's go back a couple. You met this gentleman online first. Or you met him,
FaceTime.
You began to FaceTime with him. That's
it was
different.
Actually funny, because I would always be like, you can just email me. And he was like, no, I want to see you. And so very early in the process, we just started communicating by, thank God for, technology. So we would use Google Chat and FaceTime, and that's how we got to know each other, through phones and through phone and emails and texts. And that was just the process of finding out each other's character and nature, and if it would be, if we could find the Lord's will in the midst of meeting.
So one of the first times, if not the first time you were on FaceTime with him, he was ready to make a decision.
Yeah, probably, I think, actually, before we even met on FaceTime, I think the second phone call, he was like, so what's your decision?
And your response was?
I don't have a decision. There's the natural culture that had surrounded me, and I was like, I need to know more information, and maybe I need to get a background check, blood samples. I thought for me to be in control, I needed to do more work, and so the beauty is, and there's other things why Manoj, asked on the second conversation. It was because of some plans that he was making, whether he was going to, go to a different country and work for a little while.
So he was thinking about moving to Dubai.
Dubai. Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, this was going to...
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And so he was like, okay, and we'll keep talking and see where things go. And so over time, I just saw the Lord's kindness in that there were just elements of his nature and his character and things that he would say that felt like for me were just forms of confirmation that I could see that the Lord was working.
Wow. Okay. So how long did you guys interact on electronically?
Before we met?
Before, well, no, kind of the process of interacting and then before deciding to take a trip to India.
I feel like we would kind of communicate pretty much every day, via FaceTime or Google Chat, and I want to say it was just a few weeks before he would kind of ask again, and we needed to decide what the next step would be. So.
And then at some point you decided to get on a plane with your mom and your dad and one of your really good friends and go to India. Mm-hmm. But almost generally in that expectation, there was a large commitment that came with that. Mm-hmm. Like, tell us a little bit about that. I mean, you've not been in the same room with him yet.
Correct.
You don't know if it's really actually the right person. Yeah. It could have been another person, right? And maybe he has an eye in the back of his head or something, because he hadn't shown you that yet.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a huge step of faith, and there had been times where I, kind of communicated with people online, and I thought, I'll meet them, and then I'll know, and then I did know, and I thought, Lord, I'm going to go to the extreme, and I'm going to get on this plane, and Lord, I'm just hoping that you'll be, sovereign, and you'll make it very clear, and I'll know the moment I see Manoj that this is who you've made a plan for me to be with. So it was just a big step of faith. It was understanding his character, his nature, his not what he would do for me, but who he was as a person. I didn't have the safety of knowing what is he like with his friends and what's he like with his family and what's he like in his community. I didn't have those safety. I had to go by his word and by what I felt like the Lord was telling me.
Wow. Okay. So you went.
And then I went.
And he did not meet you at the airport.
He didn't.
Because his father thought it would be inappropriate.
Yes.
So his father met them at the airport. And two of his closest friends. Which we'll see in a minute. Mm-hmm. And then this is your meeting, and moms were there, and there were other people.
There's lots of people there actually. That's my mom. She's sitting over there, and that's Manoj's mom, and around the corner is my dad and Manoj's dad and our matchmaker Roy. And actually, my uncle was there. And my cousins were on their way. They actually rode a train for 36 hours so they could be with us.
How many?
There's their family.
They rode a train for 36 hours.
Mm-hmm. And then his sibling, my other cousin, also did the same. Rode a train for 36 hours to be there with us.
Incredible.
And these are two of Manoj's friends. One of them came to the airport in his place.
Okay, that's an incredible deal. And so then, on that particular day, you made a commitment to get married.
Yep. Roy asked us, so, what's your decision? And we said that we'll marry.
And then, after that, they went on their first date.
Yes, that evening. It is really funny because Manoj knew I liked sushi, and so he scoured. I mean, he doesn't eat sushi. I don't think he knew what it was. And he scoured the city to find a place to take me to have sushi. And so I went with my best friend, Shanti, and we got in a cab, and we drove around the city and went in this fancy mall. And we got up to the top floor, and there were two restaurants, and we headed into this one restaurant, and we opened the menu, and there is no sushi on this menu. And I hadn't have the heart to tell Manoj, I don't know if I can eat raw fish in a foreign country. I just don't know if I can do it. And so luckily we just ended up in the wrong restaurant where everything gets cooked. So our first date, we ended up at the wrong restaurant, so it's pretty fun.
Yeah, okay, well that's happened to a lot of us. Right? Okay, so then the ball starts rolling.
Yes. It's amazing what Indians can do in a few days. You have no idea. They're hardworking people.
Okay, so we have a picture here. You went dress shopping?
Yes, that's where I found my sari.
Your sari. Okay, it's beautiful. This is your friend?
Oh, that's me.
Oh, that's you? It doesn't even look like you. Oh, it is. Okay, of course it is.
Oh, yeah, it's a super fun process to try these on. A sari is like literally like 6 yards of fabric. There's nothing created out of it. You create what it looks like in the end, and I sure couldn't do it myself. And they take this fabric and they pull it down and they stick you in the middle of the little show floor, and they wrap you up so that you can see what it would look like before you purchase it.
Okay, and so you were going to, and so it just kind of goes around and around. And,
pretty much.
And people kind of help you sort of get it all tucked in and connected.
Yes. I mean, if you're not a pro like my mother or this lovely woman next to my mother, Ruth Andy, if you don't know how to, do this, it could be disastrous. Hence the reason I'm not wearing as much as Kevin wanted me to. I was like, I can't.
I wanted her to wear it. She goes, but Kevin, if it comes untucked, this is going to be very embarrassing.
It's not what these people bargained for today. So.
I thought, okay. So you went dress shopping, then you went ring shopping.
Yep.
Right there in
Bangalore.
In Bangalore. Mm-hmm. And they have rings?
They do.
They have a lot of.
They love jewelry. They love gold. Indian gold is very beautiful. So we must have gone to 10 different places because Manoj was having a hard time finding a ring that fit. So, but yeah, it's fun. You go into the store and there's probably like 20 people working, and every floor has a different. Either it's gold on one floor and diamonds on another floor, and they serve you. They bring you tea. It's a fun experience.
Oh, sounds like fun. Okay, so then it comes. How many days later is this engagement party?
So we met on the 1st, and then we had our engagement on the 7th.
So 6 days later, you're in this thing getting ready. Tell us a little bit about this.
Yeah, I had to pay this lady to put the sari on me because I couldn't do it. So she luckily, they owned a little beauty parlor down the street, and so they came to our house or apartment where we were staying, and she helped me get ready.
Cool.
Because getting ready for myself is like just walking out of my house, not makeup or anything else, hence the crazy hair today. But so it was fun to get dressed up. And
how long did this take?
Oh, maybe an hour or two.
Oh, not bad. Okay.
Most of that was putting the sari on.
Yeah, okay. So then before you left, you kind of gathered. This is your friend and your mom, you, your dad, and Roy.
Yes. He kind of looks like you, but like an Indian version.
Wow. The goatee.
Yeah.
Glasses.
That is so crazy.
Oh, I love I'll say.
It's your doppelganger.
Yeah, so Matthew brought me this today. I'm not sure I'm going to give it back. So, I love it. Okay, so then you arrive at the party.
Yeah, and my friend here on the other side of my father, her name is Shanti. She has been my friend since about high school, and she moved here with her family from Canada. And she is a kind and loving person who left her family, 2 kids and her husband, for 2 weeks so she could come with me on this trip. She lives in San Antonio.
Wow, that's incredible.
So we get to the hall, and it's a big to-do.
I mean, has she arrived, or does that like incredible picture?
Thanks.
That is like.
See what I can look like when someone does some work.
No, you look like this always. So.
So we arrived. We kind of pulled up in our car and got out, and it was like paparazzi. It was awesome.
Okay, now you guys check out these pictures. That is incredible. Talk to us about this.
So that's all fresh flowers. I have no idea what kind of flower it is, but there were flowers everywhere. And, like I said, this all got to put together, designed and decided in just a few days. And this is so common for Indian culture to, have an engagement and a wedding just in a moment's time. So as you can see, our beautiful thrones. I mean, check out those chairs, guys. And the funny thing is
we're going to get some of those requests, just so you know.
I was like, if you guys could just find the most simple chair, because I cannot handle anything too extravagant. And this is what we got.
That is incredible. So what's going on in this play right here?
So, engagement in India is not too far off of a wedding. And so it was actually a ceremony, and we, had 10 different meetings about who would be a part and who would pray for us, who would speak about marriage or speak about, what was coming up in our lives, and talking about, engagement isn't something that, most people don't take lightly, but India and Indians don't take it lightly. Obviously, if you're going to go to this length, it's serious. So it was just an opportunity for us to say in front of a lot of people that we're committed to one another. And so we had people, pray for us, and we had music, and just a special time to tell everyone that this is what we've decided.
Yeah, okay, that's cool. So then, how many people came to this party?
According to the number of plates that were handed out, there was 480 people.
That is amazing. 480 people. And there is a prayerfully dedication sense to it. This is a big deal. It's so different than American culture, right? You get engaged, you find some unique little place as a couple, and you say, hey, will you marry me? And she says, well, maybe. And, usually she says yes, but it's kind of a private little thing. This is a public, huge thing. 480 people. There is this prayerful dedication among the believers in India, in this subculture of a larger culture of a real seriousness to this, right? It's just amazing.
And it's meaningful to all of the people there, too. My side of the family, again, we don't live in this state, and so there was maybe 30, 40 people that got on a bus from Kerala and rode that bus 12 hours so they could be here just for this evening, and then they got right back on the bus. And then they took my mom with them and went back to Kerala.
Was that on purpose? They did. I mean, they just
kidnapped her.
They kidnapped her. Oh my gosh.
She was going to be staying for a while, so she got on the bus with them.
And it was actually during a bus strike.
Yeah. I unfortunately don't have one picture with my family just as a nice picture because my mom had been taken away.
And they went back.
Yeah, they didn't want to get in trouble during the bus strike.
Oh, that's amazing. Okay, and not only a prayerful dedication, but there is a joyful celebration.
Yes.
In this whole thing.
Fresh food for 480 people being made in the back. Food is such a part of Indian culture. It's part of the celebration, and it's all very delicious. So, so we fed everybody as well.
Okay, which we're going to do today. It'll be like a little miniature of this, okay? So that's what we're going to do today. You guys, I want to use this just for a second. And talk a little bit about the sanctity of this marriage, and the uniqueness of it. And not the Americanized version, that there is one, right? We have our own. And it has all its great stuff, and it has some really not so great stuff. And the American version of the way we do this. And I don't want to necessarily affirm or just celebrate just the Indianized version of it, though there are some incredibly beautiful things about it, right? Just amazing stuff. And it's got its own unique stuff, too, I'm sure. But I want to talk a little bit about the biblicized version of this. And here's what I want to say. If the sanctity of marriage, sanctity is kind of a big word, so let's cross it out for a second, and let's replace it with words that are synonyms to it. And the synonyms are these. It is the beauty of marriage, the value of marriage, the importance, even the holiness of this thing called marriage. But the scriptures use a word also in connection with marriage, is the mystery of marriage. This incredible thing called the mystery of marriage. And so let me just look at this passage really quickly. It's in Ephesians 5. It's really a neat one. It says in verse 15, look carefully then how you walk, not as unwise, but as wise, making the best use of the time because the days are evil. Therefore, do not be foolish, but understand what the will of the Lord is. And do not get drunk with wine, for that's just a waste. It's debauchery. It's just spilling it out where it doesn't belong. But be filled with the Spirit, addressing one another in psalms and hymns and spiritual songs, singing and making melody to the Lord with your heart, giving thanks always for everything to God the Father in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ. And then this very next line is very unique. And it's kind of an umbrella statement, if you will. For the next set of verses, here's an umbrella thought. It says, submitting to one another out of reverence for Christ. The Spirit-filled life, part of it is submitting one to another in all of our relationships out of reverence and a love for who Christ is. So we submit to each other. And then in the next set of verses, it's going to be, in verses 22 to 33, it's going to be about husbands and wives. In the next set of verses in chapter 6, it's going to be about parents and children, submitting to each other, and employers and employees. Now, let's look at this husband-wives thing real quickly. It says this, Wives, submit to your husbands as to the Lord, for the husband is the head of the wife, even as Christ is the head of the church, his body, and he himself its Savior. Now the church submits to Christ, so also wives should submit in everything to their husbands. Husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her, that he might sanctify her. Christ, as he sanctifies the church, having cleansed her by the washing of water with the word, so that he might present the church to himself in splendor, without spot or wrinkle, or any such thing, that she might be holy and without blemish. That's what Christ wants to do for us, his church. And that's what a husband, his attitude is for his wife, to present her as holy and without blemish. You always get that feel in this celebration of this incredibly beautiful thing going on. That he's presenting, that Manoj was presenting her as holy, without blemish, this beautiful, beautiful woman. Wow, it's an incredible thought. For no one ever hated his own flesh, but nourishes it and cherishes it, just as Christ does the church, because we are members of his body. Now look at this in 31. Therefore a man shall leave his father and mother and hold fast to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. This mystery is profound, and I am saying that it refers to Christ and the church. 33. However, now let's circle it here. However, let each one of you love his wife as himself, and let the wife see that she respects her husband. I find it fascinating that in our culture we would say, hey, you love her, and tell her you love him. It's a love-love thing, right? And here Paul doesn't use those words. It feels awkward to me. He says to him, and let's circle it, let each one of you love his wife. That a woman's heart needs to know that she is loved. And then look at this. And let the wife see to it, let's circle it, that she respect her husband. That's really powerful. You see, it's two sides of the same coin. But when we say to a woman, so I'm going to be Manoj here, and he says, I love you. Gina knows that on the other side of that, painted on the backside, is respect. That he's going to offer his respect to her. But if you say to a woman, I really respect you. She goes, well, great, but do you love me? You know, it's really, she wants to know, do you love me? Does it come with all of that? And she knows that if she's loved, she's going to be respected. And for a guy, he's going to need, for Gina to say to him, I respect you. And he says, and we hope, guys, and right, painted on the backside of respect is love, right? But if a gal comes to you and she says, well, I love you. I don't respect you. You might as well take his heart and rip it right out of his chest and throw it on the ground and grind it into the ground. Because you will destroy a man without respect. But he knows that painted on the backside of respect is her love. And when a man loves his wife and a wife respects her husband, it is an upward cycle. And if a man stops loving his wife and she stops respecting her husband, it is a downward cycle that is going to destroy that relationship. In fact, it looks like this. Marriage is this. Here's a little chart I have. Marriage is built on trust. It is built on trust. It's not built on love. It's built on trust, because when you trust someone, and there's a mutual trust, you can develop a mutual and mature love when it's built on trust. And it is sustained by commitment. By commitment. And then there's this double-stranded helix, is what I call it, of marriage. Okay, so here's a double-stranded helix. It's the DNA that you have. And here's the deal. Around this trust and commitment, a man loves his wife. And she respects her husband. And it is a double-stranded helix that goes upward, and it develops a relationship. But if it's not built on trust and it's not sustained by commitment, then, and not having love and respect in it, it doesn't work. Now here's the deal. So in this Indian culture, they come to this place a little differently than this American culture, but it's the same thing, right? She's decided she's going to trust him and commit to it and offer her respect that's painted on the backside with love. And he will come to it and say, I'm going to trust you and I'm committed to you and I'm going to love you, and on the backside of that will be painted respect. And so we have in Indian culture a 7% divorce rate. Wow. something's worth grabbing onto right there. And so we come to it from different places. But she arrived there in this unique journey that Gina took, of this American and Indian culture that she figured out how to make work. But it's really amazing, isn't it? So now we come to this place where now it's just hunky-dory, I'm sure. It's like, all solved.
Absolutely.
Everything's cool.
Absolutely not. No.
It's not? Wait a second. We need the Prince Charming, Sleeping Beauty end result here. Can you give that to us?
The reality is that, no, that's not what it is.
Well,
and if I try to create that, then I'm going to set myself up for failure. Manoj will do the same. We've made a commitment to one another that we're going to work through all things, and in reality, we're just getting started in regards to getting to know each other. But that's just part of the commitment. We'll get to know each other, and we've chosen to love each other, and we've made that commitment. And I used to tell Manoj, I love you because of this, and I love you because of that. And Manoj quickly taught me, I love you just because. And that was a big lesson for me. And more than anything, he would always remind me, I love you because I said I would. And in the end, it didn't come about because Manoj is my soulmate or the one, but because God and in His one and good, perfect will is what worked out here. And every day till the end, I'm sure that I'm going to be challenged, and like most of us are daily. And what brings, what I'm going to bring to the marriage is what I can work on, is what is my active part in making this marriage good and beautiful, and a reflection of Christ in the church. And so I am currently under no illusion, and probably not in the future, will be under illusion that it will be easy. But I've made a commitment, and Manoj and the Lord, and He's done the same.
Wow. Built on his faith in Christ. He's given his life to Christ, and so is Gina, obviously, and now their commitment to each other. I mean, it comes from such a different place, doesn't it, culturally? And yet there's such a beauty to it. So we're pretty excited about it. And we want to celebrate not only you, but frankly, we want to celebrate your Indianness in all of this and kind of bring those two cultures a little bit closer together right here in Quest. And so we're just really excited. Now, from here, Manoj has to get a visa. So what's the process from here so we can get him in the room?
Yes.
And work him over. I mean, and greet him with a Quest greeting.
It is quite a lengthy process, and so I submit an application to the Customs and Immigration Services here, and I had to create a very detailed story with lots of proof that Manoj and I are in a true relationship, that we've met in the past couple of years, and we've actually passed that first step, which my packet was probably about 50 pages long. And luckily, by the Lord's kindness, it only took us 6 weeks to be approved in that step. But then Manoj has to go and prove to the U.S. Embassy in India that this is a true relationship. And so they might ask him, what's her favorite color? I don't know what kind of questions, hopefully more detailed than that. But they'll interview him, and he's got to pass a couple steps on the American side in India to get the visa.
And then once he gets here, you have 90 days to get married.
90-Day Fiancé. Anyone seen that show before? Yeah, so his visa is only good for 90 days, so I have to marry him when he gets here.
So we'll just do another one of these really quick, and we're going down to the street, a lot like the one we saw there. No, we won't.
Yeah.
And then 90 days you need to get married, and then he can stay, and you start a life together. Continue a life together. That's already been built on trust and commitment and love and respect that they will develop over time. Okay, well, here's what we're going to do. We're going to have Gina, the band, why don't you come back up? Gina's going to sing. We're going to do a song together, but part of it she is going to do in her native language.
My parents.
Your parents' native language.
Definitely not my native language.
Yeah, so we won't know if you mispronounce anything anyway, so only they will know.
They will.
And then we're going to wrap up this, and then at the end, I'm going to ask Gina's mom and dad to come up, and Gina's father to bless her. and to bless us. And then we are going to go and party, because church is a party, and the Gina Palooza is a party, okay?